Welcome to the Tuesday, May 27th, 2014 Washougal City Council meeting. We'd ask that you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just prior to this meeting, we did have a workshop meeting of the council. Main topics of discussion during that meeting, we received an update on C-Trans Bus Rapid Transit project. Our finance director went over our first quarter financial updates for the city for 2014. We had some discussions in regards to an upcoming vacancy that we have on the city council, and also started a discussion in regards to invocations at city meetings. And that discussion will finish later on this agenda as well. We'll carry that over. So with that, Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Boger?
Here.
Councilmember Plinsky?
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee?
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay?
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Here.
Councilmember Freeman?
Here.
Thank you. We will take up the continued discussion on invocations underneath council member comments. Are there any amendments to this evening's agenda? Okay, hearing none. First order of business, any members of the public that would like to comment to council? We do have, before we get started, we do have a public hearing in regards to recreational marijuana on the agenda. As it is a public hearing, unless you absolutely cannot wait for that item to come up, which actually should not be very long from now in relative minutes, I would ask that you hold your comments until that portion of the agenda for the public hearing itself. So are there any members of the public that would like to speak to something other than recreational marijuana at this time? Please come forward to the microphone. If you would, give us your name and address.
My name is Dan Derringer, and I live at 931 15th Street in Washougal. And I was here for the workshop session. I am speaking on the prayer issue for the council sessions. And I was very pleased to hear that the council here does have a history of saying a prayer before, and I don't know how long that has gone back to, but I think I heard that maybe Mayor Crumpacker was it was during his time here as mayor that the council felt that it was necessary to discontinue that practice. And I think, you know, for many of us, we all probably have those questions in our mind if having a prayer for council is something that is appropriate and legal. And it's just with this Supreme Court ruling recently that I've gotten clear in my mind that that this type of official ceremonial prayer is a very established part of our society, our government and our society. And so it didn't surprise me that this council had a practice before prayer, and just like the country has that practice too. I would like the council to consider the Supreme Court ruling, please, in the town of Greece versus Galloway. They lay out very clearly when and how is appropriate to begin the council meetings with prayer, and certainly that is a great desire on my part, and to include that aspect of our community into what we do here for the city of Washougal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Chuck? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Chuck Miller, 25810 Northeast 12th Street, Kamloops, Washington. I'm a former Christian Coalition chairman of Clark County. The legality of public invocations is beyond dispute, okay? The United States Supreme Court has acknowledged that official proclamations of thanksgiving and prayer and invocations before the start of government meetings are an essential part of our culture and in no way a violation of the Constitution. This has been a consistent principle in the First Amendment jurisprudence. The Supreme Court has directly addressed the practice of public prayers on 2 occasions. So, with that said, and as Connie Jo mentioned, Kelso will have been saying prayers for 61 years, the 15th of June, okay, before city council meetings. Longview has been saying prayer. And the Clark County Commissioners have a prayer before their meetings. It is something that our country has done since the beginning, and actually before the beginning of our country. So I'm here to ask you, and don't think that this country doesn't need some prayers, and don't think that this community doesn't need prayers. We all need them. So I would like to ask you to please vote to have prayer before the city council meetings for your community and for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening. Either I'm tall or this podium is really low.
Both.
Both. It's a combo.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for your service because I really appreciate every one of you and your service. And I am here to talk about the prayer invocation. And I know that Councilman Shoemaker earlier mentioned that it's invoking God's presence. It's asking his blessing. And I think that's exactly what it is. And personally, I think that's exactly what we need. In the resolution, it says, whereas the problems we face in our city require solution beyond ourselves. Is there any doubt that we have some issues that need solutions beyond ourselves? And it says, thus we have a long and rich tradition of asking a higher authority for guidance in solving our challenging issues. This isn't something new that's being brought before us. It's something that's here, was here, that's been lost. Congress still opens in prayer with an invocation. And so while I realize the issue can be divisive, I don't think it should be. I don't think it has to be. So I would also just add my voice to hoping that you would consider allowing God to be present, calling upon a higher power to help us because we need it. I think we need to invoke his presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to address council? Okay, not your last opportunity. There will be another one before we finish with the agenda this evening. Before our presentation this evening, I do want to take a moment, though, and go off script a little bit. Councilmember Plinsky, would you meet me down front? Karen was elected to the city council just over 2.5 years ago and sat with us for 2.5 years, coming up very soon. So she and her family have recently sold their home and moving outside of the city limits of the city, which unfortunately for us means that she needs to vacate for her council seat. So we're going through a process now to basically replace her. If there's a time that probably the council needs prayers, it will be one of these, Pastor, because the 6 members that are left are going to be asked to speak on behalf of 15,000 people. So that will be an interesting process for us to go through. But while Karen's family is here, we wanted to give her a certificate of appreciation presented this evening to Karen Plinsky. The city of Washougal, on behalf of its citizens, recognizes your outstanding service to the city council, presented on this day, May 27, 2014.
Bravo. Let's stand up. Show off those 3 blonde-headed boys.
Don't think she's going to get off easy on Monday nights because, well, it does.
My little set of penguins here. This is my husband, Mike.
Smile, guys. Or hi, I got one of those too.
On a paper towel though, so if that's all right. So where should I stand? I feel so center of attention.
You are the center of attention.
Why don't you get up there and speak into the KON mic too?
This one right here. Sure. Oh, yeah, right, this one. No, I'm pretty sure I can project. I'm pretty sure my husband can attest to that, so. I still can't believe that I hold this seat. I walk in here two Monday nights a month and am honored and blessed to serve the citizens of Washougal. I may not have been as comfortable as I should have, but that was only because of wanting to do the best job that I could. So, as I leave, if I could leave one legacy for my peers, the citizens, and hopefully my little ones, it would be to stretch out of your comfort zone, because as everyone says, this is where true growth lies. But to me, this is where I've met and worked with amazing people. I enjoy filling this physical space, and I have changed for the better after holding the seat. Hopefully Washougal is pleased with the job that I've done. It is, again, with mixed emotions that I resign, but I look forward to staying involved. So, for June, instead of being with you all 2 nights a month, my kids and I will be chasing chickens, brushing alpacas.
Nice.
Pretty much bought a farm, so. And we are really excited, so thank you.
Wonderful. Alpacas, I love them.
Thank you for indulging us on that. Next up, we have a presentation. Our Portland State University students and our Washougal Waterfront Vision Plan. Mitch.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. Well put. You recall back in February and one other occasion, the students from Portland State University, the Masters of Urban and Regional Planning, have partnered with us and the Port of Camas-Washougal for a vision plan on for the waterfront. And the overall project name, Washougal Waterfront, a Community Connected. In your Dropbox was provided that vision plan. It's not short, but it is a well thought out product, and I'm happy to present I have 5 of the 6 students. We're missing Victor, but we have Michael, Irene, Shravya, I'm not doing last names, sorry, Shannon and Julia here this evening, and I believe Irene and Shravya are going to be presenting kind of the overall package, so if you will, on a very high level. So.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. So, my name is Irene. This is Shravya. Today we'll be providing a brief overview of our scope and process in developing this vision plan. We'll also go over our key findings from our processes, and then Shravya will do a very short overview of our recommendations. Actually, I was going to acknowledge my teammates, but since that's already done, I'll repeat it. This project was a requirement for our graduation, which will be in 3 weeks. So looking forward to that.
What did you get for a grade?
We'll be grading as soon as they're done.
Oh, we grade them.
We grade
Yeah.
them.
Oh. Oh.
That's news to them, by the way.
Yes, news to me. You might recall in our presentation of the work plan in March that this was our purpose of the project, and then this purpose was based on our RFP and then the initial meetings with the city and port and project partners, and it really guided the focus of this project. And our scope of work, the biggest component of the scope was to identify community values so that the vision reflects these values. Along with the engagement, we also conducted research on other waterfronts, looked at best practices, identified opportunities both in the local community and in the region to build off of. We also tried to address challenges identified in the RFP, including existing concerns from the public about development on this waterfront, and how best to connect the waterfront with downtown and the larger community. So all of this fed into developing a vision plan. A vision plan is community generated. It's part of it paints with broader strokes than a detailed master plan, and which means that the recommendations don't have the level of specificity that you would see that would come later in the process, such as like pricing and phase timelines. This plan acts as a long-range vision and aspirational document, and it's intended to be a tool to help shape the process, infrastructure and policy decisions so that they align with identified community values. So you may be familiar with these guiding principles. You can find them in more detail in the plan, but and I won't go over them today, but these guiding principles were created from common themes we found from past engagement that the Port and the city had already done, and also our own initial research. We continued to use these guiding principles as our foundation for creating this plan. So this is our process. It's been a long time coming, but we had a very compressed timeline, and because of that, there were some constraints associated with it in terms of we really couldn't dig deeper beyond the scope that we had already planned on, even when important topics did come up, but those have been noted to the Port and the city for further consideration in the future. We also reached out to a large number of people, but we really feel like a more inclusive and extensive process could and should happen with this project. And this can really help strengthen community trust, interest, and understanding of what's happening on the waterfront. And also, we feel it's important to note the need to continue reaching out to historically underrepresented communities, such as low-income communities, people of color. We feel like we tried our best to reach out to those people, but they still weren't reached out to the extent as other community members. So with that, this is a list of all the engagement that we did over the past 5 months or so. We really tried to tell people about the project in the beginning and just get people aware of what's happening there, and then towards the last few months kind of honed in and focused more with like business mixer focus groups, doing interviews with stakeholders and high school students. So these were our findings on the next slide. I won't go through all of these, but the one I did really want to emphasize was the first one, which is preserve the character of Washougal. Consistently throughout our engagement process, this was very important for the community to think about as future development happens. Some of the common values that people identified were Washougal's small town character, outdoor recreation, natural and scenic beauty, safety and family-friendly environment, and youth and future generations. We also looked at other waterfronts. We did case studies in the Pacific Northwest, U.S. cities, and international cities, and these are the criteria that we use to select those areas. We recognize that these cities differ in scope and scale from Washougal, but they also have really important and innovative ideas that we can also take away and apply to Washougal's waterfront. So I won't go through all of these lessons, but because I want to get to our overall key findings, but again, they're in more detail in our plan. So these were overall key findings from all our processes, from engagement and our initial just existing profiles of Washougal. And they really represent the community's desires for both the waterfront and the process moving forward. First, preserving the character of Washougal. Washougal has a unique story to tell through its history, culture, and character, and development must reflect and preserve that character. We also found it's really important for the community to be involved and informed, and transparency in decision-making will lead to better outcomes. Also, access and mobility were really central issues in this project, and improving connections and transportation options is essential for an active waterfront all year round. Diverse uses can attract visitors from all over, but also serve the local community. Kind of to achieve this balance, the waterfront needs to maximize public access. And the waterfront's a beautiful place. There's so many great natural amenities there, and it's really important to preserve and protect that natural beauty. And lastly, it's really important to consistently collaborate and have dialogue with stakeholders, project partners, and the community to make sure that there are positive outcomes in the future development of this area. So with that, I will leave it to Shravya to go over recommendations.
Thank you, Irene. The key findings that Irene just went through feed into our recommendations, and our recommendations within the Waterfront Vision Plan are a series of short and long-term recommendations that help cultivate a regional identity, create a thriving waterfront, connect people to places, and build a collaborative environment for the future. These recommendations are organized by the 4 guiding principles, representing strategies and opportunities for the waterfront to serve and support the community, the city, and the region. Some of these recommendations are dependent on each other, but there are others which work on their own. These recommendations are meant to be used as a toolkit by the city of Washougal, the Port of Camosun-Washougal, and the local community. The port and the city officials can use these recommendations to design strategies for implementation, whereas community members can use these recommendations to build support and advocacy to ensure the waterfront development stays true to the community vision. The people of Washougal want the waterfront to be a vibrant, welcoming place for residents and visitors alike. Recommendations for Cultivate aim to ensure that the development on the waterfront reflects established community values and build on existing community assets. They also take into consideration that successful waterfronts engage the whole community by providing diverse, complementary uses. To that end, Cultivate recommendations provide opportunities for placemaking and for people to gather, celebrate, and interact through uses like a community center, year-round events, and family-friendly activities. Combined in the right way, community spaces and civic uses build off of each other and energize the waterfront much more than any single use or development. Cultivate recommendations also provide frequent opportunities for users to appreciate local art, music, and theater, which help draw a community together around the waterfront. For instance, creating a place for an amphitheater on the waterfront builds on the popularity of the Washburn Performing Arts Center while expanding the local art scene. Strategic public art and self-guided tours present an opportunity for Washougal to tell its history and express local culture. A strong focus on tourism can help create a vibrant local economy. Washougal's existing assets make it an ideal location to capture regional tourists seeking a day trip in and around the Columbia Gorge. Therefore, our recommendations expand local and regional conversations around tourism and help leverage existing annual events and establish new ones. Many residents are excited about the opportunities that development on the waterfront can bring and what it can do for the local economy. Successful development on the waterfront must be well planned and must further the community's commitment to sustainability. To that end, our recommendations for Thrive include business assistance programs that create and provide support for new and existing local and small businesses, provide opportunities to recruit recreation-oriented businesses and retail, food and beverage establishments that range in size and affordability. Adopting development best practices such as phasing, clustering, and angling buildings can create functional, attractive spaces that form the core of a vibrant waterfront. A strong commitment to sustainable development through the application of a triple bottom line to decision-making and restoring habitat, among others, form core Thrive recommendations. The waterfront is an important community asset that should be developed with future generations in mind. Access and mobility are essential components for a well-planned waterfront. How you get there and how you move around once you're there are basic but vital tenets for a successful space. These are met by providing multiple transportation options that encourage users to experience all that the waterfront and Washougal have to offer. This without sacrificing the mobility and quality of life of the local community. To that end, our recommendations for Connect include improving access to the waterfront and providing connections to the rest of the community and the region by the creation of a greenway loop between the waterfront and the downtown, completing trail connections between the waterfront and Steamboat Landing and the Washougal River Greenway, providing adequate signage and wayfinding measures to make it easier for the users to move safely between the two and many other destinations that the waterfront will have. Our recommendations also ensure that streets, parks, and open spaces are welcoming, comfortable, and safe for everyone. In addition, providing a network of pathways and trails and prioritizing the pedestrian environment will create a welcoming environment on the waterfront and have the most immediate and powerful impact on the experience of the waterfront. Finally, transportation management measures such as strategic parking plans ensure continued long-term benefits of the waterfront. We recognize that collaboration is an essential part of the planning process for the waterfront. Informed decisions that come from a comprehensive community engagement process and strategic partnerships will result in more equitable outcomes that benefit the public as a whole and foster a strong sense of community. To that end, our recommendations for Collaborate focus on keeping the public informed throughout all future phases of development so as to sustain the existing momentum and to promote trust. This can include updating the public regularly, creating a dedicated position to ensure successful engagement, and holding regional discussions to collaborate and share ideas around great waterfronts. Recommendations also focus on involving local and regional stakeholders to ensure project sustainability and integration of community values. This can be achieved by establishing committees that play an advisory role in the development of the waterfront and ensure that the development stays true to the local community values. Also, expanding local and regional partnerships and continued community interactions form the core focus of recommendations for Collaborate. While we recognize that all these recommendations are essential for the development of the waterfront, and we strongly support the implementation of each of these recommendations, we also recognize that some of these recommendations must be prioritized over others. Therefore, we developed a series of priority recommendations within each guiding principle. To help determine the priority recommendations, we created a set of criteria that you can see on the screen. Recommendations that met at least some of the criteria, preferably all of them, were selected as priority recommendations. You can find them in our Waterfront Vision Plan. As the project progresses, the port and the city, in collaboration with the community, should continue to refine project priorities and the criteria used to select them.
So lastly, looking ahead, the waterfront has so much great potential to be a really great place. So we really think it's important for the public to stay involved and respect the time and energy that they've so wonderfully put into this project. And lastly, throughout engagement, our research, and our own observations, we've repeatedly seen that the most successful waterfronts are the ones that come from the ground up, with great public spaces, a lot of diverse uses, and really great involvement from the community. So with that, if there's time for any questions, I don't know, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
Council Paul?
Not so much a question as, just turn my mic on here, not so much a question as deep and heartfelt thanks for all of the work that I know you all put into this, because I ran into you at so many meetings. It was especially interesting for me as a reminder of my one and only college level city and urban planning course. So thank you.
Thank you.
I too would like to thank you. I have enjoyed reading all that you've done, and I appreciate the hours and hours of work that went into this. And it certainly is something that future council members will enjoy reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
I guess the thing that I would like to, one, obviously thank the students.
Let's have the other members go ahead and stand up if you would. And folks, what you saw here what you saw up on the screens, and I apologize, we should have mentioned this before, is just the presentation for this evening, not the plan itself. The plan itself is significantly larger. So for them to boil it down to what you just went through was awesome.
In terms of action that as we as staff and as the students are looking forward to is the port, Kim Noah, who I don't see, the finance director, we're working on a joint resolution of support for the plan that we would bring back to council and that would go to the port commissioners as well, to show our support for the plan and to cement it as a tool that we can have in our toolbox, if you will, as we look forward.
Thank you all very much. I know as I look through here, you know, some of the items you've got in here obviously start to generate some additional ideas as well, which is obviously part of the plan itself. The community engagement that you did, one as students, two from being outside of the community, was tremendous. I did notice on your list of places that you were at, I don't see the dog park on here anywhere yet. I saw you down at the dog park, wandering from person to person, walking with them with a survey in your hands, and
Yep.
so.
Well,
And that was on a Sunday.
yes, yes. That was a lot of fun, actually. I did get attacked by a dog a little bit. But I'm fine. But I would like to say thank you to the community who came out and supported us, and like we just really want to know about this project, and we are very appreciative of that and made this experience so much better. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for your work. We look forward to diving into the meat of the entire plan itself.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to also thank you. And I think you're done, like after this is, you get your degrees,
Yes. and
all of you?
Friday
Are
the
gonna-
13th.
Right, so congratulations on completing a master's program. Wish you all the best. This will be a tool that we will use. You did a great job. I've been very impressed. You represented your school well and your program well, so we hope to see you in Washougal so that you can see the fruits of your efforts. So congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Adam and any folks out in the foyer, there are some seats up here throughout the room as well, so. Okay, moving to the consent agenda. Council, this evening, your consent agenda has 4 items on it. Your workshop minutes of May 12th, 2014, your council minutes of May 12th, 2014, your regular accounts payable claims in the amount of $445,157.73, and payroll claims in the amount of $191,616.88. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. Under new business, Agenda Bill 39-14, Utility Assistance Program approval. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you is a list of support for utility payments pursuant to our Emergency Utility Assistance Program. The amount is $573.07. This has been reviewed by your Finance Committee, and so the recommended action is to authorize the transfer of funds from the Utility Assistance Program Fund to the customer or customer's utility account as approved by the Finance Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just mention that the Finance Committee does review these with some care. And then I move to authorize the transfer of funds from the Utility Assistance Program Fund to the customer utility account.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to authorize transfer of funds from the Utility Assistance Program Fund to the customer's utility account as approved by the Finance Committee. Any council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries. That brings us to Agenda Bill 40-14, a public hearing on the proposed 6-month extension of the I-502 recreational marijuana moratorium and/or the banning of the production, processing, and retail sales of marijuana. Mitch?
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. What we're going to discuss this evening, federal and state law, go over some location criteria as well, talk about the State Attorney General's opinion, go over the adopted ordinance you have in place right now, discuss the proposed ordinance, and then recommended action. I apologize to council, this may seem somewhat repetitive for all the times that we've discussed marijuana, but this is a public hearing and a public record, so I want to make sure that we have all that information available. So, federal law, marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug with the Controlled Substance Act, which means the possession, growing, distributing, or knowingly facilitating any of it is a violation of federal law regardless of individual state statutes permitting such use. In 2012, Washington State voters approved Initiative 502. This made it lawful for those in possession of marijuana in the amounts listed of an ounce usable marijuana, 16 ounces of marijuana-infused product in solid form, or 72 ounces of marijuana-infused product in liquid form. It required individuals that are there's still prosecution under that if your possession in any of those amounts larger than listed above, or of any kind of persons under the age of 21. And again, all of that is still in violation of federal law. The state law tasked the Liquor Control Board with developing regulations, which they did. They were effective November 21st, 2013. 3 license types are available. You have production, which in theory there's no limit. Processing, again, no limit. And then sales, and it was a lottery. Washougal has one, and that was awarded by the state. Location criteria. Basically, you can't be within 1,000 feet of any of the uses listed: elementary school, playground, rec center, facility, child care center, public park, public transit center, library, or any game arcade, where admission is not restricted to persons aged 21 or older. Graphically, this is represented by the gray. Those are the areas within the commercial industrial areas that would be prohibited. We dive down a little closer on our west side. These are the commercial properties. The yellow are the commercially zoned properties where you could have a retail operation. And in fact, the one retail license we have is proposed to be right there. On the east side, again, these are the yellows, the commercial properties that could possibly have a retail operation. When we look in the port, the industrial area, the green is the port area, industrially zoned. Further broken down, the red is privately owned property, and then the green is port-owned property within the Port of Washougal. The State Attorney General's opinion, which was issued late last year at the request of the Liquor Control Board, It had two very specific questions. The first, are local governments preempted by state law from banning the location of the Washington State Liquor Control Board licensed marijuana producer, processor, or retailer within their jurisdiction? The short answer is no. The Attorney General opinion that the normal powers of local government to regulate within their jurisdiction still existed. The second question was, may a local government establish land use regulations in excess of the Initiative 502 buffer and other liquor control board requirements or business license requirements in a fashion that makes it impractical for a licensed marijuana business to locate within their jurisdiction? And again, the short answer was yes, that we could use, it did not, I-502 did not impinge upon our ability to regulate within our jurisdiction. The Attorney General, based on that opinion, he basically said that we could prohibit the uses under I-502. However, he did note that formal Attorney General's opinions are statements of the Attorney General's office views on legal questions relating to the duties of a public officer. They are not binding on the courts, but are usually given careful consideration and respect. So the adopted ordinance that you have in place right now is a 6-month moratorium for all 502 related uses. It ends on June 2nd, 2014. It recognized the public approval of I-502, but also that the contradiction between federal and state law. It was an emergency ordinance. It was adopted effective December 2nd, 2013, required a public hearing, which was held on January 27th, 2014. The proposed ordinance, after our last discussion, there was concern about continuing the moratorium. There was talk of ban. We actually advertised this meeting as a possible continuation of a 6-month moratorium or ban. In working with legal counsel and others, we have arrived at we're only going to look at a 3-month extension for the moratorium. So the ordinance before you is a 3-month extension for all I-502 uses. It ends September 1st, 2014. And I would like to note that the ordinance in front of you states 2015. That Scrivener's errors, we will correct that. It does also recognize the public approval of I-502, but also the contradiction between federal and state law. As part of the work plan, it directs staff to develop regulations, including a possible prohibition and a possible advisory vote for uses allowed under Initiative 502. We believe that the 3-month time period, we can look at doing those things and getting something back to you in a timely fashion. So the recommended action is to hold a public hearing to take public testimony. Council desires make a motion to read the ordinance by title only and pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Thank you, Mitch. And just to clarify, everything that we're going to be discussing in this public hearing and everything that is, well, so far intended to be discussed this evening is just in regards to recreational marijuana, nothing in regards to medical marijuana and its permitted uses and assorted regulations. So with that, I will open the public hearing. I would ask any members of the public that would like to speak to the issue in favor of or against to please come up to the microphone, give your name, address, and we do have a 3-minute limit on comments.
Hi, my name is William Davis, Vietnam vet. I live at 332 6th Street, Washougal. I'm going to say 2 things, actually 3 things. One of them is there is another law that obviously you know the license with medical marijuana. One of the things that bothered me the most is that the state of Washington voted, you know, when the voters registered for the vote and everything, they came along and they voted the approval of this law into the state. And it wasn't just a small amount of people, it was a lot of people voted this. And there's a lot of people like myself that are disabled vets. I don't take any kind of drugs for the injuries I have from Vietnam. I've got 9 Purple Hearts. A lot of people didn't know that. I'm just telling you, I'm still alive. I'm 65 years old. I live in Washougal. I was born here. You know, there's some people in here I recognize that have been around here a long time. But you know, I've been here a long, long time, except for the time I was gone to service and some other stuff that I did to help people. And I help vets today. And I have a lot of close friends that are dying, okay, from cancer, you know, and they couldn't get their card because they can't get there. They can't pay for it, you know. I was just lucky that I'm able to. But, you know, if it wasn't for that, I'd be dead, okay? Because I can't take a lot of medications you guys can take because I'm allergic to it from all the stuff that happened to me over there in Vietnam. You know, I got Agent Orange. You know, my fingernails are falling off. And, you know, I can't walk. I've got metal braces in both knees, plates. I got plates in both of my ankles. And that stuff's a lifesaver to me. But I'll tell you one thing about that I know about it. I've been around it for a lot of years. I got family members that grew this stuff back in the 50s and 60s, and what I've never ever seen one death caused by marijuana. I've seen it from alcohol, and you're classifying it above alcohol. Look how bad that stuff is. How come people don't ban that stuff? Anyway, I know my 3 minutes are up, but you got to know that, you know, the guys that are doing these are doing it for business, and they got to make a living too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Briggs.
Hi, Mike Briggs, 2868 Washougal. Question for Mitch. Mitch, you mentioned in your slideshow that the federal government is basically against marijuana. It's a class, whatever, violation to have it. Why did the Washington State Legislature, has there been any discussion with the federal government as to prosecution? Will they prosecute anybody in Washington State for this use? Because I've heard, it's just a rumor, that basically the feds told the state of Washington, hey, we're not going to pursue this. So go ahead. Question. I just throwing that out there. I just want to see if anybody knows anything.
Mike, I've already got that one written down.
Oh, okay.
This one, unfortunately, folks, this isn't a question and answer period, but we're going to make sure and get back to those. So this is just for public testimony at this point, but Mitch has got the note as well. So stay tuned. Don't go far.
My name's Candace Fine. My address is 15307 Northeast 101st Circle, and I'm actually in Vancouver. And based on what he said, you very well may have the right to put a ban or prohibit, do another 3 months or something. You're just dragging it out. You may have the right to do it, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. As the gentleman here just said, my brother went through cancer. And that was the only thing that got him through it. And he didn't have a medical marijuana card either. And the chemo made him terribly sick. I've been a resident of Washington State my entire life. And I'm absolutely insulted at the fact that we all had the opportunity to vote, just as this gentleman said, and it was passed in this state. And it really, I find it offensive for a few bureaucrats to take that decision upon themselves when we all voted to have it passed. We voted for a reason. We voted for our own reasonings, whatever those were, but we voted, and I think that you should honor what that vote was.
Thank you. Good evening, Alex.
Hello. My name is Alex Yost. I live at 2131 Main Street here in Washougal. Starting with just a quick metaphor to put you in the mindset that I've been living with. I see Washougal as a surfer who sits in the ocean every day but never takes the wave. What are we waiting for? We're surrounded by people who offer advice, support, experience, and opportunity, but we still don't take the risk. What are we afraid of? My partner and I moved to Washougal over a year ago. We have been operating a successful business in the downtown core for the last year. That was a risk, a very big one. But I believe it was one worth taking because in the past year, our business has helped to build our community in a positive way, strengthening the relationships we have with our food by supporting local farmers and engaging our customers in a broader discussion of where food comes from. And we've given the people of Washougal a warm, delicious, and inviting space to share with friends and family. We were able to accomplish this by listening to our community. We stand by who we are as people and as a business while listening deeply to the wants and needs of every single person who walks through our door. I encourage you all to do the same with every single member of our community. When holding public hearings, open your minds to the possibility of change. Be honest with our citizens. Don't rely on fear or ego. Washougal is ripe for change. We have the building blocks for success. Now all we have to do is see the wave coming and take it. The waterfront development project is crucial to the survival of our town. These graduate students, who are now gone, have poured their vast knowledge, experience, and energy into this vision plan. Consider it honestly and study it thoroughly. It is not just an expertly composed document. It is an essential tool in our toolkit. Please use it. The countrywide legalization of marijuana is going to become a reality within my lifetime. It is time to look beyond our fears and consider the facts presented to us. It is time to reopen the dialogue and evolve our attitudes. The sale of recreational marijuana has the clear potential to increase the city's tax revenue. I see this as a positive. If you are concerned about the impact the proposed storefront has on our youth, then I would encourage you to please actively engage with youth groups, community organizations, teachers, and parent groups, and help spread awareness and education rather than promote distrust and fear. To ban the sale of recreational marijuana in Washougal would be to greatly limit the city's ability to regulate and monitor its use. Please ask yourselves these questions when considering the future of our town. 1, what do I love about Washougal? 2, how can I help it grow? 3, what are the risks and challenges that lie ahead? And 4, what am I waiting for? As elected leaders of this community, it is your responsibility to use the power you possess to enact positive change and continue the growth of our community. You're already out there in the ocean, so all you have to do is take the wave. And when it comes to shaping the future of our city for the generations to come, don't let the doubt of the unknown hold you back. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Just come on up. People holding their hands up.
So my name is Dan Duringer again, at 931 15th Street. And I was one that happened to vote against the initiative for marijuana. In the state, I do recognize that the state did pass it. But I personally do feel that drug use, especially in recreational drug use, is not for the community's benefit. I grew up witnessing that in my community 20, 30 years ago, and the effects that it does have on people, the use of marijuana. I am thoroughly opposed to the recreational use of marijuana, and I do ask that this council consider the effects on this community. Now, it's true that the state did pass the initiative statewide, but I know that our area here is conservative. And I don't know what the population here is, but how they voted. But they may not have voted with the state on this issue. So I do ask for the council to consider what's best for Washougal on this issue, and I would like to have the moratorium extended, and I also, it seems that the ban is possible. I wasn't quite sure from what I was hearing from the staff here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Chuck?
Chuck Miller, 25810 Northeast 12th Street, Kamloops, Washington again. When I was a young man, I always wanted to have a cocktail lounge, you know, and just have a good time with the ladies and have them sell alcohol. And then I met a man at that owned a buffet over in Portland, and he set me down and we kind of had a little talk, and he said, "Why would you want to contribute to destroying individuals and families by selling them alcohol?" And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, wow, he was right. And I never wanted to own a tavern or a lounge after that. My personal experience with marijuana is it was a gateway drug to my son. My son has spent his life in and out of prison, and I have no idea where he's at now. He may be dead. And I saw it destroy his life, little by little. And my best friend has been gone for a couple of years now. He smoked pot. I tried to get him to stop. He said, "Oh, it's helping my asthma." I said, "Come on, I've got asthma." You're blowing smoke. Well, he had an engineering job at Freightliner. Pot burned out his short-term memory, and they fired him. Pot today is 10 times stronger than it was back in the 50s and 60s. Deadly. Destroys lives. I've talked to doctors about it. Doctors say for young people, when they get to smoking pot, it destroys their brains. Irreversible damage. It's against federal law. Yes, the state passed it, but federal law supersedes state law. And unless you want to see more of your citizens destroyed, I would stay with the moratorium. This is my personal experience with it, and I don't want to see any more lives destroyed, and that's where I'm at on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Good evening.
I'm Bob Liggett, and live in 2551 North M Street in Washougal. 3 years ago, we moved here to be close to our grandchildren who live in Portland. We got to have a choice as to where we were going to live. Were we going to live in Portland? We're going to live in Oregon? Or we're going to live in Washington? If we made choices. We made those choices based upon things that we felt were important to us. Things that were going to be able to help our livelihood over the years. I'm retired. That entered into it as to what the cost of living was going to be. Things along that particular line. We had a choice to move into Vancouver. It was a large city. We knew that the large cities many times have certain things that are pluses and certain things that are minuses. When we were going to be choosing where we were going to live, we thought, well, maybe we would prefer to live in a smaller town and not live in a large city. We had the choice of Camas or Washougal. And the way I looked at it is the fact that you had the metropolitan area of Vancouver. You had Camas, which was a little bit more of a suburban kind of atmosphere, and you had Washougal, which was more of a small town atmosphere. The people before were talking about the values of Washougal. I think that if there are people who would like to participate in recreational drugs, they have the freedom to move and go places to be able to have it. When you have it within your own city limits, there are going to be unintended consequences. They're just going to be that way. There are going to be social impacts that families are going to have to live with. I do not understand why you would want to encourage more of those social impacts. If there are people that are going to have to go someplace, that's one thing. But you don't have to have it downtown. You don't have to have it within your city limits. If the people are going to choose to go there, at least make it not as convenient for them. And then maybe you don't have to have the impact of some of the unintended consequences on the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome to the community as well. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well.
All right, lots of stuff going on here with this topic, isn't there? So, a quick introduction. My name's Bobby Saberi. Grew up here in Washougal, moved here in 1980. Lots of friends, lots of family in this town, and one of my good friends and business partner happened to win that lottery ticket to be interviewed for the recreational marijuana store that that everybody's discussing. My background, I'm on the board of the MPPA, which is Northwest Producers and Processors Association. We're heavily involved in Olympia. Phil Waite's our lobbyist. He's been very educational and taking us through this, through what it's meant to cities and towns all across the state of Washington. I think I attended 13 different forums across the state of Washington, along with the Liquor Control Board. Listened to many municipalities speak similar to this. I think I've probably listened to 15 to 20 different city councils and county commissioners speak over the last 3 years about this topic. So I think the first part, to acknowledge the gentleman's comments, everybody here has a point. That's the problem, right? That's a tough one. When everybody has a point, where do you go from there, right? All you can do is kind of reevaluate where you're at currently. One of the things that was brought up was the votes in Washougal as opposed to the votes in the state of Washington. I think it was Councilman Shoemaker who had mentioned that, hey, I think we lost by like 28 votes or something like that. So, it sparked a very good idea. We partnered with a couple other concerned citizens in the town and some surveyors, and they actually went around. I know one of the discussions was that to vote in the town of Washougal could be an expense. One, there's a private community out there that would be willing to back that vote. Two, a survey here of 5 questions. Question 1, did you vote yes for 502 or no for 502 initially? Out of, let's see here, we had 64% of the individuals that were surveyed actually voted yes. Asked again, if you had an opportunity to vote again, would you change your vote? 78% of the people said they would change their vote to yes, as opposed to no. So you can see that 28 margin really starts to dissipate after the economics, the laws of economics have gotten involved. Listening to a lot of city councils talk, the one thing I haven't heard is what the economic factor is on the local businesses, the tourism. It's already been noted, tourism is increased. Yes, DUIs or people smoking are happening more, but DUIs have gone down and crime rates have actually gone down in towns with marijuana. Another question, do you feel tourism dollars are important to the small business owners of the city of Washougal? Tourism has been a direct, immediate impact of recreational marijuana. So to say that tourism and recreational marijuana don't go together, recent studies have shown that to be the opposite. Add that, actually 100% feel like tourism is a very needed thing in this town relative to 502. And I'll copy this for you and I'll drop these all off. There's about 78 surveys here. And with more time, we can go through and try to figure out how to get a more accurate database for that for you. So, I guess when it comes down to traveling across the state of Washington, there are going to be some towns and cities that really benefit from this. People are going to drive to Vancouver. They're going to drive to Skamania. They're going to drive right through Washougal. The Best Western is going to stay empty. I don't even know where I can get food here on a Monday or a Tuesday. Every restaurant's closed, right? Pretty much. It'd be nice to see, we're 25 minutes from a major metropolitan airport, right? It is a small town. It does have a small town feel, but we still are only 25 minutes from a major international airport. That's, something's got to be, thought about that. So I guess, long story short, one day, if the state or the feds say it's not okay to prayer in a city council meeting, I'm sure individuals will get up and fight for that right too. Just because it's illegal doesn't mean that it's correct. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Real quick, if I could just remind everybody, and especially everybody who spoke, to sign in outside to make sure we get names correct and addresses correct. Thank you.
And Bob, after the meeting, Alex can give you the location just a couple blocks away of a wonderful restaurant. Oh, they're regular. Okay. He just said he didn't know where to go.
You said Monday. Saying on Monday.
Yes. Good evening.
Hello, my name's Brandon Brock, 173 West Y Street, Washougal. I'm the guy who got the lottery ticket for Washougal, and I'm the CEO of Mary Jane's House of Glass, which we have a location in Washougal, along with Mary Jane's Productions. We have a manufacturing facility down at the port. Rather than, it's a long debate on why we should or should not banned and do a moratorium. But I thought one of the important things not talked about is who you guys will be working with, who's going to be representing the retail side. So a little about my credentials. Like I said, I've been in the industry 15 years. I run a chain of smoke shops. I have 9 locations, 2 warehouses. I'm pretty well versed in the retail world. I've heard some people talk about how this can be bad business for the community. So I thought I would talk about a little bit what my company's done for the community in Washougal and Clark County. One of the things we do is a food drive here in Washougal. We donate our food to the Treasure House. We give a discount to our customers who are going to be the same customers as the 502 stores. And I tell you, Mike at the Treasure House was quoted, he says, when you show up, it's like Christmas. You continually out-donate all the churches combined on a monthly basis. That's 2,200 pounds that we've donated to the Treasure House. As far as Clark County as a whole, we've donated about 100,000 pounds. And on top of that, we've done scholarships for Clark College. We donate to the Camas Washougal Community Chess. So we do a lot of good for the community, and I just want you guys to know I'm open here for ideas, suggestions to get this moving forward. I think done in the right way, it can bring obviously jobs, tourism, and a lot of other beneficial things to Washougal. I have a feeling one day you're going to have a pot shop here anyways. If it's in 3 years from now, we just miss out on all the good tourism and everything. So it's one of those things to get in front of, I believe. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brandon. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. Jared Northam, 1456 51st Street, Washougal. To the young lady's comment earlier, she asked why move to Washougal or what's the appeal of Washougal. My wife and I moved with our children over here about 9 years ago. What drew us to Washougal was the small town feel, the safety of the community, and the safety in being able to raise children in the area. I'm a father of 5 with kids ranging from the ages of sophomore high school down to twins that are in kindergarten. If there's anything I can do as a parent to prevent Washougal from having a pot shop for 3 years, I'll do it. The longer I can keep that out of the community, I'm willing to fight for it. I think I represent a lot of young families with children who are opposed to having the legalization of recreational marijuana in the town of Washougal, or the city of Washougal. With regards to the tourism, it's fantastic. I'd rather not live in a town that relies on the sale of marijuana to generate revenue. I think we've done just fine in the past. I think we have a bright future ahead without having to sell marijuana. My fear and the risk, the young lady also mentioned taking a risk and not willing to take that risk. My fear is, and I'm not willing to overcome my fear, is the safety of my children. I don't want the availability of marijuana in the hands of the community on a recreational basis. I think it's evident that that will lead down and trickle down into teenagers. They already have it. It'll just make it more accessible to them. I don't want my kids riding their bikes around town knowing that there's more people in the streets that are high. I don't want them having it more accessible in schools that they're in, around schools that they're in. I think a survey of 78 people is not a good representation at all of the city of Washougal, and I would be more than willing and happy to go out and find others that oppose that, because I think those numbers would dwarf that. And I do recognize that the state passed the law, but I don't think cities with 1 million or 2 million people or 500,000 people are a good representation of a small town like Washougal. And I hope we keep it that way, and I am willing to volunteer my efforts in any way that you need to help maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Rich Blum, 6322 Northeast Lassard Road, Camas, although I'm a pastor here at Bethel Community Church in Washougal. My concerns, I certainly don't want somebody who's a vet who is suffering not to have medical marijuana. I don't want someone who has cancer not to have medical marijuana. However, I don't want our youth to have access to marijuana because I think it's going to hurt them. I don't know what the stats are, but I know that when they get to 25 years of age, whatever it is, if you take marijuana, it's going to decrease your mental capacity greatly. Marijuana use lowers IQ. One study showed heavy teen use can permanently drop IQ by 8 points. The more a student uses marijuana, the lower their grade point average is likely to be, and the most likely they are to drop out of school. Marijuana use negatively affects motivation, memory, and learning. Youth with an average grade of D or below were more than 4 times as likely to have used marijuana in the past year than youth with an average of an A. High rate of disciplinary actions involving possession and distribution of drugs in schools. Nationally, it's the highest. And what I'm concerned about is before moving to this great community, I lived in Colorado. I have a lot of friends in Colorado right now who have told me it's a disaster. They have children in emergency rooms having taken marijuana by accident in gummy bear form, whatever it might be. And quite frankly, I don't want to see that happen in Washougal. I know there's an economic benefit, but if the economic benefit is the cost of our children, I can do without that benefit. And so I hope we'll keep those children in mind when we make decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Pastor.
Hi, my name is Sarah McGuire. I live at 2026 C Street. I've been here for about a year, and I'll be moving into where the old Main Street Mercantile is with the business. I have 5 children, and I'm a little nervous, but I'm just voicing my support as someone who is a mother. I have young children that is supporting discontinuing the moratorium. I believe that, I think that change is coming. This is happening. We have a really unique opportunity to shape it. And I do encourage council members to listen and to take into consideration many of the concerned families. I think that the difference with Washougal is that we already have a very strong community feel. There are many opportunities for young people in our community to reach out to those who would listen for counsel. I'm so impressed with our school system so far. My children are very supported, and I noticed my children aren't in high school, but there have been so many efforts made to reach out to increase parent and teen communication. I think that Washougal is on the right track. I'm so impressed with the community chest and the work that goes on there. I think that we have a community that supports its youth, and I think this is coming. I think that I grew up in Vancouver, and I saw a lot of my friends using drugs that were in their parents' cabinets. How many of us are on mood-altering prescription drugs that have crazy side effects? So I would also encourage council members to really look at the research that's out there. I'm not going to stand here and tell you, the different statistics, because I'm not a researcher. Please do research. Do your own research. Don't listen to us. And there are a lot of studies out there that are conflicting, but keep researching and make up your own minds. And I trust that you will, and I thank you for your time.
Sarah, before you leave, I kind of heard you go back and forth a couple of times. So are you in favor of the moratorium on banned, or?
No, I'm in
move
favor
forward?
of the moratorium being removed and
Okay.
and Washougal
Move it forward.
moving
Okay.
forward, yes.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to testify? Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kendra Hockman, and I'm actually living in 3736 Gracie Place in Longview, Washington. If you guys are familiar with that town, it's another town with a very small town feel. People really pride themselves in that. A huge problem there is it's top 5 for both meth and heroin users per capita, and it's because it's also right next to a hospital. Everybody readily can have accessibility to not only street drugs, but painkillers, which usually is what leads to it. Being somebody who, I'm pretty young, as you guys can tell, fresh out of high school, I witnessed my friends literally, as she mentioned, being able to get it out of their parents' and grandparents' cabinets. That is a reality, that's not a myth. Having readily accessible marijuana, where you don't have to go into a drug dealer's alley, where people who need it can access it, where they aren't having leftover prescriptions sitting around so that their children can get into it. I'm sure there's a lot higher overdoses for that than for marijuana-infused gummy bears. I think that that's a valid point to take into consideration. And also, one of my occupations, I work in the marketing industry, and just viewing this as something that you guys would, I just feel like it would be robbing Washougal of an economic opportunity that you guys have right now. And it's heavily regulated, as you guys have pointed out. There are only a certain amount of areas that you can put it in, not even close to the schools. And having it something that people can freely talk about and freely educate each other and their children. Educate them more about it like naturopathic medicine, like it's a herb, just like any other herb that you can get your hands on. Just because some people may smoke it to get high doesn't mean anything. That's a stigma that you are putting on it by continuing the ban, or by continuing the moratorium, and if you were to place the ban into action. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Anyone else that would like to testify? Representative Fike, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Liz Pike. I live in Fern Prairie at 26300 Northeast 3rd Street, Camas. And I represent this city in the legislature. And one of the things that strikes me is you all have a tough decision, I know, to make tonight. And as you're probably aware, in this last legislative session, there was what I thought was a really good bill. It was a big, giant omnibus marijuana bill that would have reconciled the unregulated part of the medical marijuana in this state with this new approved 502 recreational marijuana. And I just wanted to remind you, if I can pull this up, sorry. In August 2013, in a memorandum from the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice said it would not fight marijuana legalization in states so long as they created a strong and effective regulatory and enforcement system that would address the threats of those state laws and the things that would pose public safety, public health, and other law enforcement interests. Now, as you know, you have declining revenues and more state mandates on all the things that the state tells you have to do. And this is just another unfunded enforcement mandate that is being put on you. And yes, we have to respect the will of the voters who approved 502 and then back in '98 who approved the medical marijuana bill. But I just want you to know that Senator Ann Rivers' bill would have gone a long way to address a lot of the concerns that have been echoed by some of your constituents tonight. And it passed the Senate in the final days before the session ended this year. And as you know, when the legislature tinkers with an initiative, a citizen initiative, it requires a supermajority, so 60% of the Senate and 60% of the House. And because of Senator Rivers' persuasiveness, she got it through the Senate, but it died in the hours before our session ended in the House. But as you also probably know, next year when we go back to Olympia, it will only require a simple majority to fix the things that I believe are inherently flawed in the citizen-written initiative. And I know you have to make this decision, and I don't want to unduly influence you one way or another, but we will we will be back in Olympia in January, and we will fix this, and we will fix the fact that we do have a broadly unregulated medical marijuana system in this state, and it needs to be more regulated so that the feds do stay off the backs of Washington entrepreneurs that decide to go into this business. So I guess I would just encourage you to be encouraged that the legislature is going to deal with this with an easy, simple majority in January. And I respect the will of the voters. They pass these initiatives, but sometimes the initiatives are flawed. And we've had part of our process in Olympia is, and particularly in the initiative process, is anybody can write an initiative and they can sell it through false advertising. And the citizens were promised all this money if we just pass recreational marijuana. And as you know, the state legislature didn't even book any of that revenue because we knew that it was a big question mark. So just proceed cautiously and know that the legislature is committed to dealing with this, and it will be addressed so that we meet the guidelines of the U.S. Justice Department. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Liz. While you're working on those fixes, can you make sure that you keep the information in there in regards to the cities and counties getting some of the tax money from it to handle enforcement?
Thank you for reminding me that. That was one of the important tenets of Senator Rivers' bill, was that 10% of the revenue collected in whatever city had this regulated market would be returned to your city for enforcement purposes. And I think I heard somebody, one of your members of your council, at the Memorial Day service yesterday, saying that a lot of the 911 calls for law enforcement do occur at facilities where it's prevalently used. So we'll address that.
Your efforts are appreciated. Anyone else that would like to testify to the issue? Last call. Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Thank you to everyone who testified this evening. I know to some degree it can be a little bit anxious and nerve-wracking to get up in front of a group of folks, let alone us sitting up here. But your testimony and your comments and your examples are well received by the council and will certainly be taken under consideration. Council. Oh, before we get to that, Mitch, do you want to go back to, well, I think we've...
You have to close the hearing.
I just did close the hearing. Mr. Briggs had a question in regards to the federal prosecutions. I think
Representative Pike answered it, that the legislature is going to need to work on some things to keep the feds off our back, in her words.
Okay. Council.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance continuing the existing moratorium for 3 months within the city of Washougal on the establishment, location, operation, licensing, or maintenance of recreational marijuana producers, processors, or retail establishments asserted to be authorized or actually authorized under Initiative 502, Washington Administrative Code, Chapter 314-55, Revised Code of Washington, Chapter 69.50, or any other laws of the state of Washington, and further directing staff to develop regulations, including a possible prohibition and consideration of a possible advisory vote.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second. I've got a motion to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Council discussion. Brent?
2 weeks ago, I expressed some reluctance to proceed with another moratorium because moratoria come out of zoning power, and I don't believe it's an appropriate use of zoning power to basically regulate drugs or adopt things that deal with drugs. Zoning power is for land use impacts, and the social ills of drugs is not something that really is normally addressed in the zoning code. And I was also concerned that I didn't believe that the staff was doing things, and that was by design, that complied with the state statutory requirements for a moratorium. Mostly, we weren't engaging in any study. We just didn't know what to do. We wanted to wait for the legislature to act, find out what the feds were going to do. There was nothing we were moving forward on, and this did not comply, in my opinion, at least strong argument in my opinion, in favor of my opinion, that it was consistent with the RCWs on the moratorium. Since that time, I've been doing some consideration about if the council was predisposed to ban these uses in the city, about how to effectuate that. There are a number of ways to do it outside of zoning. You could put something in the criminal code, and we need to change that anyway because marijuana possession is still a misdemeanor in Washougal, and that's completely unenforceable now because of I-502. I think the city attorney would agree with that. And that might be an appropriate place to put it, the nuisance code, or whatever place it might be. I think it's reasonable to take three months to figure that out. And my primary motivation is, and I don't believe that I was put in this job to substitute my views for the residents of this city. The vote in this city is very close. My figures are 3,146 voted no on it, and 3,118 voted yes on it. So it's very close to even. I understand the Post Record had different figures that came from the county auditor's office that showed passing by 2 votes. So there's really genuine doubt as to where the city stands on it. So I'm always in favor of consulting the voters when there's really a genuine question of where they stand on it, where the issue can be fairly easily understood. Marijuana, yes or no, is a pretty simple question. And so I would also like to use this 3-month period to consider the possibility of putting an advisory vote on the ballot in November to ask the voters whether they want this in their city.
Thank you. Other council members? Paul?
No.
I will admit to great ambivalence on this. There's a couple of factual things I want to point out. Prohibition ended, but not instantaneously. To this day, it is legal for a Washington city or county to declare itself dry. That said, I grew up watching The Untouchables on TV. And so I understand the evils of black markets and cartels. And one of the great advantages of 502 is that it takes marijuana out of the black market and out of the cartels. There's a lot of the bad features, if you will, about the present marijuana situation that are much more related to the black market and the cartel, not the least of which is that up until 502 passed, there's absolutely no difference in the legal consequences of supplying marijuana to a 12-year-old or a 60-year-old. Under the new 502, that's different. There's significant change in what that means. Marijuana is already here. There's no doubt about that. And furthermore, it will be legal in the state of Washington. We cannot keep it out of Washougal. We cannot make it illegal to possess or use in the city limits. The only thing we can do is regulate production, processing, and retail within our city limits. If we do license retail, it gives us an opportunity to put it much more in public view. We can watch it much more closely. We can restrict a number of features of it, which if we just put our heads in the sand and say, we're going to say not in Washougal, but it still comes in from anywhere else in the state of Washington. That said, tourism is a red herring. The Attorney General's opinion makes it very clear that one of the obligations for the state of Washington for a, quote, well-regulated market is to prohibit and effectively limit interstate trade. There are, as Representative Pike mentioned, there are always problems with initiatives, and this one has a number of them. One of them that's come out of the definition is the definition of a park. We have two parks over in the port of Camas-Washougal, Parkersville Landing and the Marina Park. Neither qualify under Liquor Control Commission rules as a park. Neither do our soccer fields, neither does the dog park. There is no regulation of potency, which is crucial. In fact, under the existing petition, you're limited to 1 ounce of leaf marijuana, but a pound of infusion. In the words of a chemist friend of mine, a pound? I could keep the city of Tacoma high for a month on a pound of what I can make synthetically or deriving from legal marijuana. The legislature needs to deal with some of these issues. One of the things that we need to think about, for example, is restrictions on advertising. Without wanting to go into too much detail, I'm getting a lot of personal complaints about the sign shaking for Mary Jane's House of Glass on the corner of E Street and Washougal River Road. There are people who are very upset about that and very much want to see that it does not happen as part of a retail marijuana operation. So I'm very conflicted about this. I think we have a lot of work to do. I do agree that ultimately we will have legal marijuana in retail in Washougal. I personally would like to see the legislature fix some of the problems first. And one of them, for example, is all of the revenue, all of the tax revenue goes to the state. None of it comes to the local municipalities for any of the enforcement that's needed under the new laws. And we're the ones who have to enforce it. In the words of one of the members of the Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association of the state of Washington, at this point, I hope you and the legislature have put a lot of money into your state police, because the only thing we can do is drop a dime. We have no other resources. So this is a big issue, and I think it deserves waiting long enough to try and get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Jennifer?
Yes. As my colleague stated a minute ago, we aren't up here to debate the legalization of marijuana. That argument is over. It's legal within the state of Washington. Our debate here is about the businesses producing, processing, and selling this marijuana product. And do we want them in the city of Washougal? In my opinion, marijuana businesses are not family-friendly businesses, nor do I think they are a positive tourism draw, quite frankly. Exactly the opposite, and this is purely my opinion. But I can tell you this from what we know. In Washougal, gambling and card rooms are banned. That's in our laws, because the community doesn't want them. Every time a proposal comes forward for a casino or a card room, the public rejects it, and very, very loudly. We also don't have any adult entertainment stores or businesses. These types of establishments are not family-friendly.
These are the same reasons. I firmly believe I'm representing my constituents by voting yes on the moratorium, and I continue to vote yes, and seeking to ban the businesses who deal with it from locating within our city limits. And that is how I'll be voting this evening.
Any other comments, questions? Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Paul, for that very enlightening discussion. I knew you would get into that kind of detail. I'm going to confine myself to policy. I'm reminded of the old adage, which was reduced to a bumper sticker in the 90s. What is popular is not always right, and what is right is not always popular. And I think that's good guidance for this particular issue. As my colleague here pointed out, our job is not necessarily well understood on this issue. But our job is for the city of Washougal to make law. That's what we do. We study the issues hard, thoroughly. As you heard from several of my colleagues tonight, there's a lot of knowledge that they've gained on this issue. And then we make decisions and subject ourselves to the voters every 4 years. And I thank our colleague Liz Pike for her efforts to try to resolve this discrepancy between the feds and the state, which is a major stumbling block for us. We got a letter some time ago, and I'm not sure that it's been rescinded or there's been any further action on it, from the prosecuting attorney from the local federal district here. If I remember correctly, he said anybody that's involved in this sort of thing is subject to arrest and trial at the federal level. He didn't mince any words. He was very clear. I would not like to subject my colleagues or the city to that kind of treatment. Comment on a couple of things I heard tonight. The reason you don't hear economics being used as a decision criterion in the marijuana discussions is that the health considerations are dominant. They're much more important. And therefore the economics take second chair. Personally, I'm not interested in pot tourism and the people that it would bring here. I had the opportunity early in this decade to work for the Little Hoover Commission in California, which advises the governor and the legislature on the effectiveness and efficiency of California state government. I had the honor of leading a study on drug treatment in California. It was a year-long study. We involved a lot of people in that, hundreds of people, mostly from the treatment, some from the prevention, some from the law enforcement side. But we involved a lot of people and spent a lot of time listening to what they had to say. So, the study was called For Our Health and Safety, Joining Forces to Defeat Addiction. Some of the conclusions: marijuana is a gateway drug. Long use reduces IQ, ambition, and social skills. I note that people were here tonight advocating change. Change is not always good. Change is not something that you advocate for itself. It's the quality of the change that you advocate for. And when it's not good, it's not something to aspire to. And lastly, I really don't care what authority, what technical provisions of law or policy or whatever else that we use to keep this social and health disaster out of our city, so long as we do it, and do it before the expiration of the moratorium that's currently in place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Kind Joe?
We have some very elegant speakers here at the dais. I'm going to tell you personally, as a student that graduated from high school in 1969. Yes, I'm 62 years old. I watched so many people become entangled. And guess where it all started? Yeah, marijuana. So you can talk till you're blue in the face. I've seen my relatives. I was pretty close to a statistic myself. Could have easily have been long-term damage due to the influence that marijuana brought into my life and the circle of people I used to run with. And now I have children that are young adults. We left Orange County, California, and came to a small town, naively believing that small towns were good places. And I have family members that have been entrapped in Washougal. And I'll tell you as a mother, I can barely speak for the harm that's been done to my family. I wish I could have trusted Washougal, but I don't. And 50% of the people said no. And I will stand with those folks. As far as the businesses here in town that promote this type of thing, you may donate profits, but when you see that your employees are passed out in the back room with marijuana packaged and processed and ready to go, that's not the kind of businesses we want our children to pass by every time they are on their way to and from. So, it's what a joke that we're going to get revenue and every penny of our revenues to go for enforcement. What kind of revenue is that? You bring in revenue and you have to turn right around and use it for enforcement against the thing that you're getting the revenue from. Just figure out if that makes any sense at all. So, if it hasn't touched your life, I'm pretty shocked because it's touched most lives, most families, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie Jo. Joyce?
Well, marijuana is in our community. It's a thriving, sophisticated, lucrative business that's not controlled. And as Paul said, a child can buy it or an old person can buy it because there is no legislation, I mean, there's no control when it's illegal. I raised children through the 60s, and I watched my grandchildren. There were all talks about quality of life and how you find it. That's with alcohol, what you read, who you associate with, and where you go, and how you choose to spend your time. I look at marijuana as another trap on the road for our children. I don't like it that they can get it illegally, but they can get it. I thought when marijuana was legalized, then it would be in the open, and there would be laws. Children still get liquor, but it's not as available as it was at one time. Representative Pike, I'm hoping that the state legislature addresses this so that you end some of these loopholes so that we as a city can handle it. I will support the moratorium, but that is not going to carry us into the time of the legislature. So in September, we will be facing this again. It's an issue we're going to have to address very realistically in our community. But banning it is not keeping it out of our community. It is here. That's all.
Thank you, Joyce. Karen?
I think I know how to work it by now. I too will be supporting the moratorium tonight. until the discrepancies are figured out between state and federal, I am not ready to bring this to the city of Washougal. There is no tax revenue that is designated for our city as of yet, and so I think that's a misnomer for some people that think that the city of Washougal is getting money back. So tonight I will support the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Dave?
My colleague makes the point that marijuana is here, and I agree, it is here. I just don't want to see it institutionalized, and I think without the moratorium, it would institutionalize it. And that's why I'll vote to support the moratorium tonight.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the floor. The motion and a second is to extend the moratorium for a 3-month period to September 1, 2014. So, Council, I've got a motion to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can we have a roll call on that?
It was unanimous.
I heard no no's, but yes. Rose, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Boger?
Aye.
Councilmember Plinsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenlee?
Aye.
Councilmember Lindsay?
Aye.
Councilmember McDaniel? Aye. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Okay, that takes us to the second opportunity in the agenda for any public comments. Anyone from the public that would like to comment to council?
I want to say one thing, maybe Representative Pike can add. There's a whole
If,
educational,
if you could, come on up here to the microphone.
there's a whole educational fund of funding that's being delegated to the school districts all across the cities and counties, and maybe you can chip in. They're talking about holding back those funds that get parceled out to the educational system. However, you don't collect virtual taxes other than your 2% of your sales excise tax, you will be potentially banned from any grant funding, so we're talking about money for security and for law enforcement, when the whole thing that I heard this entire time, which is great for the ban, I mean for the moratorium, this needs time to figure itself out. But when you're figuring it out, you have to understand, we go back to economics, I know it's a word that I like to use, but there is some economics here that towns that ban will be losing out on when it comes to the financing and the funding that goes into the educational pie, because the state pulls back about 30% to put into an educational pie. That gets dispersed to all the cities.
No, it doesn't.
To a certain extent. We'll double check that, but I just want to throw that in real quick and then I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chuck?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I appreciate your vote tonight very much. Wanted to also mention that the county will not allow this to take place. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to mention that earlier. And also, Seattle having all kinds of problems with them smoking pot on all the businesses, and they're just raising the dickens going, hey, stop this, get this away from our businesses, it's affecting our businesses, and so they're trying to they're trying to get it stopped. And wanted to also mention that the day that they passed the marijuana initiative in Clark County, an individual that was high on pot was in a car accident and killed someone the very day that it happened. And I just appreciate all of you voting the way you did tonight. And I mean, it's pretty scary what's going on. I mean, it's just I hope that we can stop it and protect our children and our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chuck. Absolutely. Good evening.
My name's Cleona Sataropoulos, and I live at 1688 North 9th Street, Washougal. I wasn't going to say anything, but I kind of feel provoked from all of the comments. My father smoked marijuana for probably 40 years plus, and he's now diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he's no longer in my life. So, you know, there is an effect. People say there's no mental effect from this drug, but I'm living proof that there is. He didn't do any other drugs, he didn't drink, and it was marijuana, and he's no longer, you know, part of our family. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Cleo. Any other members of the public that would like to address council?
I know I went over my comments earlier, so I'll be really quick about this.
I didn't even time you. Professional
Okay.
courtesy, we didn't even time you.
Thank you.
Remember that when we come to testify.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if everybody in the public knows the way the tax structure is set up in 502. There's what accounts to basically a 75% sales tax. Unless you're a processor and a grower, then it's a 50% sales tax. So it's pretty easy to see that the people that are getting into the business are going to be processors and growers because they'll be more competitive by 25%. But the challenge for the state of Washington is to compete with the black market marijuana that, as Council Member Lindsay says, that's already here. So if you're one of those recreational marijuana users that's been going to the local wherever to go buy it for the last 20 years, you're probably going to keep doing that to avoid the 50% or the 75% sales tax. So the enforcement thing is going to be huge, and I hate to beat that like a drum, but I meant to mention that earlier today. But the sales tax thing is a big thing, and I'm interested in hearing from all of you, plus all of the citizens, on the changes that they think they want to add to these bills that are going to come forward in the legislature. And maybe the sales tax needs to be less so that we can compete with the black market, so we can get rid of the black market. Just an idea, but I'm open to any suggestions. liz.pike@ledge.wa.gov. I encourage you to please communicate your desires. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. I certainly want to thank everyone from the public who was here this evening to speak no matter what. To our officers out front, thank you for being here, Kelly, Dan, James. I asked them to be here this evening. I read some late reports on the Columbian's website that this afternoon's hearing at the public, or at the county public building, was loud and profane at times in their deliberations. So just to be on the safe side, I was assured that folks in Washougal were going to be very respectful, and once again, you've proven us right. So thank you very much for the way that we have gone about this evening. Under Mayor's report, I have three items for you. One, I did travel back to Wyoming a couple of weeks ago at the invitation of the governor of Wyoming and the mayor of Gillette, Wyoming. Gillette, Wyoming is in the eastern part of the state and is in the middle of, I believe it's like 235 coal mines that are centered around in a fairly small geographic area there. It was a 2-day trip that, quite frankly, it was a little bit of a sales job. We got to see some of the things that the town of Gillette and its region, which is about 40,000 people, Gillette's about 30,000 in size, some things they're able to afford through the mining of coal back in that area. Things like $54 million community centers that are unbelievable. Technical colleges, different things that they've been able to afford with that. At the same time, they have a very low gas tax. I think gas while we were there was $3.35. Very little liquor sales or taxes. A 5% sales tax, but it's on so few items that you don't really even notice it. So a portion of that was I guess, nice to see. It's nice to see how other folks do things. We had everybody from the President of the Senate to the Speaker of the House that were there to welcome us and speak to us over the 2 days. A lot of their city and county folks, a lot of their school folks, the school district superintendents. Again, it was nice to see those things, but in regard to coal traffic and coal coming through the community, obviously, we're not going to see any of that income that's going to help us build community centers. So the second day of the tours, we actually went out to coal mines. We went out to coal-fired power plants that have been in operation for a number of years, and we're able to really climb into how they actually process and mine the coal, how they use it for their power generation, what they do with that, the costs involved in it, the low energy costs and that type of thing. I think the one piece that I came away from, and they do it very well, I'll give them that. Gillette is a very clean community. The coal plant we were inside of, the coal-fired plant that we were inside of, was unbelievably clean, and we were told that it hadn't been cleaned since the day they dedicated it. And you can see dust in places and that type of stuff, but the dust is dust. It's not black. Going into the coal mines, we were actually walking through the coal mines, and they're surface mines. But along the railroad tracks, along through there, all throughout, we've got to see the topping process that they do to some of the rail cars that come out of there. It is done only by customer request. It's not something that the coal mines do to every shipment that comes out of there. It's not something that Burlington Northern controls. It's something that the coal mines control themselves based on a customer's request. But we were able to get into coal that was not treated and coal that was treated. The one thing that I came away from that was still disappointing, even from the folks from the coal mines, they didn't let me climb, two things that were disappointing. One, they didn't let me climb into a coal car itself, which I really wanted to see. But two was the information from the folks at the coal mine that, yes, in fact, if those cars are not completely sealed on the bottom, some of that dust is going to sift out, no matter where it is in transit. So that was another piece of information I've been trying to get for probably the last 2.5 years in regards to the movement of those rail cars as they come through the community. I don't think it's a great amount, but there is still some there, and that's left for debate on there. We certainly, there were a lot of questions about the global use of coal and what that means and all of those different environmental and more global community issues. And those I'm going to leave for somebody else that is far smarter than I am in going through that. But it was a very eye-opening tour to go through. I really wasn't sure what we were going to see when we went through there. There were about 10 of us, 12 of us that were from the state of Washington, from the Tri-Cities, from Connell, from the city of Vancouver, from Longview. If you ever get an opportunity to go through there, and I think they're going to try and do more of those tours. Again, they want people to see what the process is and try and eliminate any of the misnomers that they get tagged with in regards to people comparing them to coal mines on the East Coast and underground coal mines and that type of thing. So it was interesting, still a little bit disappointing at the same time. They do give you phenomenal hospitality when you're in Wyoming. There is no doubt at all, and the beef is wonderful back there. Memorial Day. Yesterday we had our Memorial Day services. Thank you for so many council members that were up there. I sent kudos out to the staff today in regard the staff that were involved in getting all of those areas at the cemetery ready to go. Thankfully, the sun shined for those of you that were there, and it was just a spectacular morning up there. This Friday, if anyone can be downtown at the 1 o'clock area, the Jump to Guard Marching Band has been invited over to the Junior Rose Festival. They will be over there in the next month, and the schools have made the request, and the city has accommodated them to close down some city streets downtown for them to get some actual practice on the streets. So starting at 1 o'clock and going, Dave, remind me, it's 45 minutes to an hour is about what they're going to do?
I think so. We can send, and they're going to take a break, I believe. We can send out the details.
But I know we've got some city staff that are going to be out. The school district is releasing some of their staff that are done by that time in the afternoon from the district office. So it should be interesting to see and cheer the kids on in their practice in there. Last item, June 4th, the Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year and Business Person of the Year and Educator of the Year dinner. June 4th, if you would like to attend that, if you would, contact Rose so that she can make those arrangements with the Chamber of Commerce. I believe it is starting at the 5:30 hour, but we will confirm that to you, and it is, I believe, at the new Lacamas Lodge. That's all that I have for you. Council members.
I'm sorry I missed the workshop. I just have one question for the city attorney. Was the different constitutional provisions of the state constitution discussed at the workshop?
It was not discussed, but we did look into that. My associate, Scott Russell, looked into that. He didn't see anything. There was some stuff on, I think there was a case on a chaplaincy program through Pierce County that they think that didn't raise any issues because there was no money supplied to it. So I felt pretty comfortable saying there's nothing in the state law that we know of that would impact the prayer issue.
Okay.
And my apologies, Karen, before we go on, if we could, let's go ahead and go back to your resolution that we had this evening during workshop in regards to invocation at meetings. We started to get into some comments in regards to the resolution and the rules. I believe where we left off, Councilman Shoemaker had asked for some clarifications and/or consideration for some changes on the procedures that were supplied to council. Any further discussion that you want to have this evening?
Well, I'm sorry I missed the discussion, but I did have some comments. I got an email from, you probably all did, from my predecessor, now Culpeper, Virginia City Councilman John Russell, about having this commence 5 minutes before the regular council meeting. Was there any discussion of that workshop?
There was a question where it would be. The only comment was previous in time in Washougal. It was actually in the agenda, not prior to the meeting, and was before after the Pledge of Allegiance and before the roll call of council members.
Okay. I have a couple other considerations we might want to take a look at. Is there any provision about whether council members would stand during the invocation?
We haven't discussed it. They used to in past.
My concern about that is there might be council members who have a particular feeling about a particular denomination when they do their prayer or invocation, that they may not stand, and that might show disapproval as and they're approving or not approving a religion. I think we probably ought to make, in this situation, be sitting, so that doesn't become an issue. And the other thing I'm toying with is maybe we want to do a trial period and see how this works out for, say, through the end of the year.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts on it.
Any other comments, questions that didn't get asked earlier in the workshop? Paul?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we lay the issue on the table.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to lay the issue on the table, which basically means that we are not going to be taking it up at this time.
This meeting, forever. It can be brought up any time. There's not an intent to act on it tonight, is there?
I think that it was on the workshop, and we carried it over just for discussion at this point, so there's
Right.
nothing really.
There's no question before the council right now. It's basically, we're in work session, but I'm not sure about the motion being in order when it's a discussion item. I have to defer to the attorney.
What was your intent?
My intent is to lay the issue on the table.
Okay. Maybe, could you
which I believe would
clarify
end
what your
discussion.
intent is with that?
I'm sorry?
Could you clarify what your intent is with that? You know what you want to do, but I guess that's not clear to
The
me.
motion to lay the issue on the table requires a majority to bring it up again.
Okay.
But your motion would end discussion for this evening.
It would end discussion until there is a majority to raise the issue from the table.
So it wouldn't be brought back by staff without a motion by the council? Okay. Okay. Understood. And that was seconded by Councilperson Lindsay. Okay.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to lay the issue on the table. All those in favor?
Pardon me, who was the second?
Joyce?
Okay, is discussion permitted?
I
No,
don't
it's
believe
not,
on any of those there is discussion.
it's not debatable.
Not debatable.
So I've got
According to
a,
Robert's rules.
I've got a motion and a second to lay the issue on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call.
Rose?
Councilmember Boger?
No.
Councilmember Plinsky?
No.
Councilmember Greenlee?
Aye.
Councilmember Lindsay?
Aye.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No?
Councilmember Freeman?
No.
4-3 motion fails.
I would make an alternative motion, and that is that we bring this matter up probably second meeting in July, when we have a new council member who should be part of this discussion. And we postpone consideration of this issue until, I'm thinking, the second meeting in July.
For a, Counselor, for a workshop, to continue the workshop?
Workshop and possible action.
Okay.
Second meeting in July?
I'll give you a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about, why don't we just do the trial period thing? We'd have to.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to postpone the issue until July 28th. Council discussion. David?
We've been pussyfooting around this issue for the last 2 years. There have been a series of parliamentary moves to delay consideration. This one tonight would have killed it until a majority of the council brought it forward again. And that's difficult to do because this is a 3-4, 4-3 type issue. It's another attempt to stop the discussion. I'm never in favor of stopping the discussion. I would, Councilman Boger beat me to the punch here. If this motion is defeated, and I urge my colleagues to defeat it, then I will move to bring this up for a vote tonight. I think 2 years is long enough. I think it's been workshopped to death. It's been discussed to the point where most people are bored with it. Let's have a vote. Let's let the people see where we stand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Any other council discussion? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to postpone the issue to July 28th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call?
Councilmember Boger?
Aye.
Councilmember Plinsky?
No.
Councilmember Greenlee?
No.
Councilmember Lindsay?
Aye.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Aye.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No.
Councilmember Freeman?
No.
4-3, the motion fails.
Mr. Mayor,
David?
I move that we put this to a vote tonight,
Second.
and that the rule changes that we discussed in workshop can be delayed until we have a decision on whether or not to adopt the resolution. And if we do adopt the resolution, then we can set the rules next time.
David, do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I so move.
One caution is that the resolution actually adopts the rules, so
Exhibit A.
You can always amend the
change
rules.
that?
We can, Mayor just said yes to that.
You can amend it later, sure.
You can amend the rules
Okay,
later if you care.
I move to adopt the resolution as amended to exclude the consideration of the rules until our next scheduled meeting.
I'm not sure what you just said. I heard it.
Help me out here, Don.
Dave, do you want to?
You want to pass the resolution without adopting the rules at this point? correct?
Yes.
But I thought you said we could amend the rules later.
You can. His motion is to adopt it without
Did you
rules
catch that, Dave?
At this time.
at this time. I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution this evening without rules at this time. Council discussion. Joyce?
I'm not trying to play and prolong, Council, but we have had the precedent that we did not workshop anything and then vote on it in the meeting of the same night. That when we decided to have our meetings, the two meetings the same night, it was that we would leapfrog so that we would not be doing what we're doing now. So we were workshopping it tonight, as I understand, to bring it back next meeting to vote on it. Is that correct?
Council desire, sure, you know.
Brent?
I've got a problem. This wasn't on the agenda tonight for an action item, correct?
Correct.
The public was not notified that we were going to act on this tonight.
Correct.
And I also have a bit of a problem with doing something like this on 4 to 3 votes or 3 to 4 votes. I think we ought to have a little bit more unity if we're going to take a step like this. So I won't be supporting this. I would support a little more time to give this some thought and not rush into it. I read the Town of Greece decision over the weekend again, and there were some things in that decision, in the majority opinion or in the concurring opinions, that I think could be the kernel of a situation that if we don't comply with, we might trip up the ruling in that case. So I want to be a little more careful with these rules, so I'm not going to support this tonight.
Okay. Any other council discussion? Dave?
It's not unprecedented to bring something up in a workshop and vote on it that night. There has to be a good reason for it, usually an urgency. I think the time that we've spent on this creates, in my mind, a sense of urgency. And I acknowledge my colleague's concern, but that rule is not hard and fast. So I would ask for consideration to bring this to a vote and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution this evening without the rules as attached. So basically, we would be eliminating half of the last sentence of Section 1 pursuant to the procedures outlined in the attached Exhibit A, incorporated herein by this reference.
I'm sorry, is it been amended now? Are we voting on the amendment to remove Exhibit A?
No, the motion is to adopt tonight without Exhibit A.
Okay, so it was one motion to approve without a section. Okay,
Without the exhibit.
without the exhibit.
And I apologize for the complexity of the issue.
It is complex, and I have problems with several of the areas in the resolution, so I won't be able to support this tonight either.
Any other questions on what you're voting on?
I want you to, I'm confused. Can you read it again? What we're voting on?
You're voting on the resolution itself, just the page of the resolution itself, not adopting any of the exhibit or the procedures at this time.
Give me a second, I'll give you.
So basically, you'll just be voting yes or no to have invocations at the start of meetings.
With no rules or procedures.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution this evening without Exhibit A, the invocation procedures. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No.
Roll call?
Councilmember Boger,
No.
Councilmember Polinsky,
No.
Councilmember Greenlee,
No.
Councilmember Lindsay,
No.
Councilmember McDaniel,
No.
Councilmember Shoemaker,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
5-2, motion fails.
I thank my colleagues for putting it to a vote.
Let me take a bold stab. If council will permit, why don't we put this onto our next workshop meeting agenda again? And have whatever form of discussion you want or direction from council at that point, and a consensus either to do something with it or to hold off until you've got a seventh member at that point. Everybody good with that?
I'll be gone next time. I'll be on the East Coast. Is it possible to delay it till the next one?
I'm fine with anything. That's the question for yourselves. Paul?
I would suggest actually delaying it until August or September because we will have a new council member in July. And I don't know about you, but I remember very much the deer in the headlight feeling of the first meeting, of the first couple of meetings. As a matter of deference to them, to let them get their feet on the ground a little bit, I would suggest that it was be appropriate to let this issue ride until they do so.
I have confidence in whoever we select. This is a very good group of people. They're going to select somebody that's very capable, and I think they can handle it.
Any other comments? I think at a staff level, we're kind of still a little bit unsure where you want this to go. The motions to postpone it till July 28th failed. The motions to pass it tonight failed.
I'll move to postpone it to the first meeting in September.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to postpone the item until the first meeting in September.
You don't have to deal with it anymore.
Any council discussion? Dave?
Point of information, Mr. Mayor? Is there any reason from the staff perspective to delay it until September?
We're at the pleasure of the council at this point.
But I mean, it doesn't pose a burden on you.
None whatsoever.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to postpone until the first meeting in September. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Motion carries. Okay, back to council comments. Karen?
You done?
Goodbye, Karen.
I will miss you guys.
We will miss you.
Her parting shot.
I know. And I have a parting gift from my coworkers, Aggies.
From your chickens?
Hope they're not from the alpacas.
No.
Okay. Paul?
I just wanted to mention that this coming Sunday at the Pendleton parking lot, there will be a blessing of the bikes, and by that we mean both bicycles and motorcycles. There are a number of local churches involved, St. Anne's Episcopal, Camas Friends, and Washougal United Methodist Church have been the leads on this, but there are a number of others involved. There will be a ghost bike, which is painted white. People can write the name of a lost loved one on the bike. And frankly, for me, it's as much about blessing the riders as it is the bikes. There will be an adult bike ride, bicycle ride, a shorter children's bicycle ride, and a motorcycle ride out into the gorge. Pendleton parking lot, 1:30 p.m. this Sunday, June 1st. Thank you.
You bet. Bruce?
I attended the Memorial Day service Monday at Washougal Cemetery, and I was thinking as I watched the soldiers and the flags and the graves, and I thought, we're all recipients of the people that have gone overseas or here and have fought for us. And it was a very sobering moment, and the history of the wars, and each year there are fewer people from the previous wars. And it was just, it's a very moving ceremony that they have at the cemetery, and I was pleased to be there, and I was proud of our city.
Thank you, Joyce. Jennifer?
I also concur with my fellow council member, Joyce Lindsay, regarding the Memorial Day services at the cemetery we have every year. It's really well done, and if you haven't attended, I highly encourage you to do that next year. The testimonials are moving, and you know, watching people place wreaths on behalf of those who gave their lives for wars from all the way back to the Spanish-American War to today, and you know, watching people show their reverence is really sobering, and I have a lot of respect for our military members who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. We had two state legislators attend our Memorial Day services, and both were very impressed as well. Senator Ann Rivers and Representative Liz Pike were in attendance, and they were just, I think we blew their socks off, quite frankly, with the level of detail and all the work that was put into it. So thank you very, very much for the staff, the Washougal City staff that donated a lot of time to go out there and set everything up. And then, of course, our cemetery board and all the different organizations that put into this ceremony every year. I think that they just do a fantastic job. Also, I want to echo what Mayor Gard said about the Jump to Guard Middle School Parade coming up on Friday. My daughter will be playing the flute as she marches for the very first time in public off the school grounds, so that'll be exciting. I will be there, and I will also be in attendance at the Junior Rose Parade this year to show my support for her and for all of her classmates. So if you can get out there and root for Jim to Guard, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Do you know if the kids have seen the Music Man at school yet?
No, I don't.
Maybe they should show them that morning.
That would
It's
be
my
great.
Johnny!
That's right. That's me on this side of the road in Portland.
Dave?
I wanted to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for sharing with us the letter from the young history teacher who explained to us why he volunteered to go to war, in a war that is that most people don't even recognize is going on. That was profound. I think so long as we have young people like this, I'm not worried about this country. Young man is a leader, and I'm confident in the future of this country if we have leaders like that. Secondly, I regret misinforming the council. The last meeting you asked me whether or not I was speaking this year, or if I knew who the speaker was, and I told you no. 4 days before the event, I was asked to speak. So at any rate, I just happened to have a burning issue on my mind, and that was a good venue to talk about it. My apologies to the audience for the fact that I couldn't get the mic to work very well. There'll be a public safety meeting on the 16th of June. At noon at the Washougal Police Department, and the public is invited.
Thank you, Dave. Quick note on Chris Goebel, the young man that I read the letter from. Mr. Scott actually has interaction, or has had interaction with Mr. Goebel. He was a history teacher over at Kingsway Christian School and taught both of Dave's children. So
Marvelous.
Cutting Joe?
Thank you, Colonel Shoemaker.
I noticed that.
I got promoted.
In retirement, you got promoted. Not a bad deal.
What is your rank?
Say again?
What is your rank?
I'm a major.
Major,
Not anymore.
Major malfunction here.
major malfunction. No, we did have a discussion that it's not your fault, it's that sound system. We did discuss that we may just have to invest as a city in something decent.
I think there was a motion made there.
Any seconds?
Second.
As a proud Navy mother, I wore my Navy t-shirt yesterday, and it was a fun time. It was a proud moment, and I'm want to ask, who is our liaison with the cemetery board?
Joyce.
I would like to ask that you mention to them that we have possibly Jim DeGard or the Washougal High School band or choir to do patriotic songs.
They don't do the program, the veterans.
The veterans do. So maybe it's just them that we need to speak to then.
We don't have.
I just think,
We just do the cake.
and you do it well. I just think that would be an added bonus of patriotic songs that we could all sing with. It'd be great. That's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
I have a great deal for you. The American Legion up at Cape Horn runs actually up at the Washougal River side of Cape Horn, not Cape Horn itself, actually puts together the program itself. They have a breakfast coming up
American Legion?
on June 8th. They serve breakfast from 8 until noon up at their hall on the River Road. It's a great deal. $7 gets you pancakes, eggs, sausage, biscuits and gravy, toast, coffee, juice. And they would love to see more people up there, and the right people are there for you to speak to.
What day of the week is that?
It's always the second Sunday. They do it every month on the second Sunday. And they do a phenomenal.
Pastor, will I make it back by 10:30?
Oh, easily. I guarantee, they have so many volunteers there. The first time we went up, from the time we walked in the door, 20 minutes later, we were done.
Wow.
It is all you can eat.
Oh,
They just keep bringing it until you tell them to stop.
there you go.
And it's awesome. So,
Could move our Sunday school class up there.
Paul?
Once a month.
Just one more thing. I also was at my, seventh consecutive Memorial Day service, and please extend my thanks to both the cemetery board and to the city staff. I've heard a number of comments from people going back years who report how vastly improved it is, how much better it's cared for, how much better it looks than was true, say, 10 years ago. That Suzanne and the staff up there have done a great job, and they deserve a lot of credit.
I think this year they had some Interact help as well from the Rotary to plant
Rotary planted flowers
around the driveways. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We are adjourned.
Do you want some A's?
Better
There's only 6.